Hi students, this is Mr. Yao. In this lesson, we are going to review how to solve equations. I'm going to start with some simple two-step equations. Let's have a look. Example 1. Whenever we're solving equation, our goal is to get x by itself, which means we're trying to get rid of everything that is around x. So that 3 and the -2, they both need to be gone. And since we're solving it, which means it's inverse operations, we have to do the opposite. So since we see it's a -2, we're going to need to add 2 on both sides to get rid of the -2. We're left with a 3x on the left side, and 7 plus 2 is a 9 on the right side. And then, since it's a 3 times x, we're going to need to divide by a 3 on both sides, so x equals a 3. But when we actually calculate it, let's say you have a 3, let's put the 3 back in. You're going to do 3 times 3 minus 2. In that case, you're going to do the multiplication first, and then minus the 2, which gives us a 7. So you can see when we actually do the solving, we're actually dealing with the -2 first, and then we're trying to get to the 9, and then get to the 3. So it's complete opposite. Okay, number 2. Imagine you actually know what x is. You would probably divide it by 5 first and then add the 1. So when we try to go solve it, we're going to go opposite. So inverse operations. So since the last thing we did was +1, I'm going to need to subtract 1 on both sides. To get rid of the +1, I'm left with a x divided by 5 equals 2 minus 1, which is a 1. Now, because this is x divided by 5, I need inverse operation, so I'm going to multiply both sides by a 5. That's going to get rid of the 5 on the left side. I'm left with x equals 5. Number 3. 3 and 2 are very similar, but different. Because in 2, we have a fraction and a number on the side. But in 3, x plus 14, they're both on the top of the fraction. So let's say you know what x is. In that case, you would actually add 14 first and then divide it by 5. So now when we actually solve this question, we're going to have to go opposite, go backwards. So we're going to need to multiply both sides by a 5 first to get rid of the denominator and leave the x plus 14 on the top, and the right side is a 10. I'm only multiplying the 5 to get rid of the 5. I'm not even using the 5 to times the x or the 14, so the top remains. Now I just need to subtract both sides by a 14 to get rid of the plus 14. I'm left with x equals 10 minus 14, -4. That is number 3. Number 4 is the same as number 2, so please try it. So since we have a -3, I'm going to add 3 on both sides. To get rid of the -3, I'm left with x over 2 equals 1 plus 3, which is a 4. And then, since I have x divided by 2, I'm going to multiply both sides by a 2. Get rid of that denominator. I'm left with x equals 8. There you go. That's number 4. Now we're getting to multi-step. So it's very similar to the two-step, except this time you can see in our questions we have parentheses. That's why in the last lesson, we reviewed distribution and combining like terms. And that's exactly what we're going to need to do here. 3 times x and 3 times -1. We're not multiplying the 3 with a 2 because the 2 is not inside parentheses. We have 3x minus 3, then a plus 2 equals 11. Before we actually start moving things, well, we can actually combine like terms to make the whole equation a two-step equation. The -3 and the 2 together becomes a -1, still equals to 11. So now it's just a two-step equation. I'm going to add 1 on both sides. I'm left with 3x equals 12. And then divide both sides by a 3 because that is 3 times x, so x equals 4. That is example 5. Okay, example 6. Same thing, but this time make sure when you distribute, you're distributing the -2 with the x and with the -2 inside the parentheses. You have 7x, -2 times x is -2x, -2 times another -2 is a +4. That equals to a 24 on the right side. Now we can combine like terms since we have a 7x and a -2x. Together, that is a 5x plus 4 equals 24. Now it becomes a two-step equation. So we can just subtract 4 on both sides. We're going to get a 5x equals 20. And then we divide both sides by a 5. Our answer, x equals 4. Next, number 7. The difference between 7 and 8 compared to 5 and 6, well, we don't have parentheses. But at the same time, we have variable on both sides. So if you think back about two-step equations that we were solving, we only have variable on one side. So of course, the first thing is we're still going to convert these into two-step equations. We're going to need to move one of the variables. So for example, we can actually move the 5x. And when we say we move the 5x, we're not just dividing by a 5, because if we divide by a 5, we still have an x left. So we cannot do that. So we're actually going to need to subtract 5x on both sides to completely eliminate the 5x on the right side. So we have negative 2x, because it's a 3x minus 5x, so it's a negative 2x minus 4 equals 8. Now we're down to a two-step equation again. So I can simply add 4 on both sides. We're going to have negative 2x equals 12. And now some of you might be like, well, this is a minus 2x, so clearly I'm going to need to add 2x. The issue is, if you do that, negative 2x and 2x cancels, you're left with a 0 on the left side, which does not make any sense. So our goal here, this is actually negative 2 times x. So in order to get rid of the negative 2, we're going to need to do the opposite of the multiplication. So we're going to need to divide both sides by a negative 2. Our answer, x equals, well, the right side is a 12 divided by negative 2, which is a negative 6. That is number 7. Number 8. Same thing. We can move the variable to the left side. So if you want to always have your variables on the left side, then just always move the one on the right side. But another way to do it is you can choose to move the smaller one. 5p and 8p in this case, clearly 5 is smaller, so I'm going to move 5p by subtracting both sides by 5p. We're left with a negative 14 on the left side. The right side, 8p minus 5p is a 3p, and plus 4. So one thing, again, when you actually need to get rid of something with a variable, you got to actually subtract it. You can't just divide by the number. If you do that, you're still going to be left with the variable. Okay, so now I can just subtract 4 to the left side. I'm down to negative 18 equals 3p. I can totally just keep that 3p on the right side. I don't have to move it. Because our goal is to just get the variable by itself. It doesn't matter if it's on the left side or on the right side. It's just typically our habit is to keep it on the left side. So now I can divide both sides by a 3. My final answer, p equals negative 6. That is number 8. A few more complicated questions. You can pause here and try them out. Okay, number 9. So this case, we actually don't have parentheses, but we do have the numbers, so we can combine like terms to begin with. 11 and 7, negative 7. So we have 3x minus 4, not minus, plus 4 on the left side. Right side, 6x minus 3x becomes a 3x plus 5. Okay, and then when we try to solve it, we're going to subtract 3x. They're the same, so I can move it either one. So I'm going to subtract 3x from the right side. My left side, I'm also left with a 0 plus 4, and the right side is just a 5. So 0 plus 4 is just a 4. So we're left with a step that is 4 equals 5. Clearly that does not make any sense. 4 does not equal to 5. So in this case, the answer for this question is no solution. Because 4 equals 5 doesn't make any sense. We are at a step that we can't do anything, doesn't make any sense, it's not even right, then it's no solution. Okay, number 10, we see parentheses, so we're going to need to distribute. 5x minus 10 equals 5x minus 10. Well, the left side and the right side are the same, so let's continue. Let's say we want to move the 5x. That's gone. That's also gone. So we're left with a negative 10 equals negative 10. Compared to the previous question, the last step in the previous question, 4 equals 5, that is clearly false. That is not true. But in this case, negative 10 does equal to negative 10. So this is true, which means it's not no solution. This case, it means any x would actually make this equation work. So the answer for this one is infinitely many solutions. That's number 10. Number 11. Right side we have parentheses, so let's distribute. Copy down the left side, 5x minus 12. The right side is 6x minus 12. Okay, so let's start moving things. I'm going to move the 6x to the left side, so I'm going to subtract 6x on both sides. I'm left with a 5x minus 6x, which is a negative x, or you can write it as negative 1x. Either way, negative x or negative 1x, they both work. Then minus 12 equals a negative 12. Now we're going to need to continue, because my goal is to leave x by itself. I'm going to need to add 12 on both sides. We're left with a negative 1x equals 0. One thing to be clear, this does not mean no solution. No solution is when you're at a step that doesn't make any sense. In this case, we can continue. So now we're going to divide both sides by a negative 1, since the question is negative 1x, which means negative 1 times x. Divide the right side by a negative 1 as well. We're left with x equals 0 divided by negative 1 is a 0. So 0 can actually be a solution. That's example 11. Next, example 12. Both sides need distribution, so distribute on the left. Negative 18 minus 21x. On the right side, 36x minus 18. Okay, same thing. In this case, I'm actually going to move the variables to the left, just because we have been moving them to the left. To the right. So, cancel them. We're left with a negative 18 equals 36x plus 21x, which is 57x. Minus 18 on the end. And now I can add 18 on both sides to get rid of that from the right side. We're left with a 0 equals 57x, which is 57 times x. So I can just divide both sides by a 57 to get rid of it. 0 over 57, the answer, x equals 0. That is number 12. Moving on, last two. Please make sure you pause and try these first before you come back and check the answers. So 13, we see parentheses, and we need to distribute. 5 plus 30b plus 20, left side, negative 8 minus 3b. I can actually combine like terms after distribution, so I have 30b plus 25, left side of the negative 8 minus 3b. It's a negative 3b, I can actually do the opposite, so add 3b on both sides. I'm left with a negative 8 equals 33b plus 25. Then we can actually move the numbers by subtracting 25 on both sides. We have negative 33 equals 33b, which means 33 times b. So I can divide both sides by 33. I'm left with b equals negative 1. There you go. That's number 13. Number 14, about the same as 13. So parentheses, so we distribute 3x plus 18 equals, the left side we need to distribute. The right side we actually need to combine like terms. 5x minus 9x is a negative 4x minus 31. And now I can move that negative 4x together to the left, adding 4x. Again, even though this is the case, even though negative 4 is being multiplied with the x, we're not trying to get rid of negative 4. We're trying to get rid of negative 4x. So that is gone. We're left with 7x plus 18 equals negative 31. Now I can move the number because that's just a two-step equation. I'm left with 7x equals negative 49. Now I'll divide both sides by a 7. X equals negative 7. And that's example 14. And that's all the review for multi-step equations. Thank you.